It's 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. I call this regular meeting of the Kingsville Independent School District to order. We'll have roll call. Joe Morales. Joe Morales. Martin Chapa. Here. David Garcia. David Garcia. Joseph Reese. Here. James Glusi. Here. Yelma Salinas. Here. Brian Kufal is here. Let the record show there is a quorum of board members present, and that this meeting has been posted in accordance with Government Code Chapter 551, the State of Texas Open Meetings Act. We move now to the moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag and pledge allegiance to the flag, one state under God, one indivisible.
Be noted that this meeting is being live video streamed. We move now to item number 4, the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Motion made by Ms. Salinas. Second. Seconded by Mr. Ruiz. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 5-0. Item number 5, public participation. Ms. Bettis, do we have anyone that wishes to address the board?
Yes, sir. We have Elizabeth Ross, parent, in reference to SHAC update.
Ms. Ramos, you'll take the podium. Just remind you that you have 5 minutes and I will be maintaining that time.
Good afternoon. Here we go. I've had conversations with past KISD board presidents, 3 of them to be exact, about their problems with the SHAC committee. Craig's being the most vocal, and the other 2 a little less. I'm here today because they wanted me to show up for a long time to talk about this subject. This long speech is overdue. So overdue, the superintendent convinced you we don't need 4 SHAC meetings this year. Let me tell you why. Your employer doesn't want them because she cannot get her team to keep them in compliance. And I've been all over this in the last few months and even warned members of the board she would pull SHAC meetings with a DOI because of it. Y'all allowed it anyway. Here's a little history lesson. It is more accurate than anything your employee will tell you. June 22nd, 2021, board meeting with SHAC report. There were no votes and nothing about curriculum. In the agenda on page 6, it states we are currently updating our parent committee membership for the board to approve in August 2021. No board meeting was ever held for board approval in August or any month thereafter. April 5th, 2022 was the next board meeting with a workshop with no paperwork for the SHAC update. Nurse Wilson stood up to speak for SHAC. Board asked about who the members on the committees were. Brian asked an employee if the new health teams would be implemented next year. She replied, yes, it would. Has it really? Colonel Price asked who the big daddy rabbit is, and after 2 minutes of confusion, responsibility was passed down to the lowest on the totem pole, Nurse Wilson. Sissy stated, we need to make sure that we are in compliance. Nurse Wilson then publicly asked for a budget for SHAC. Afterwards, SHAC held a meeting and the health teams curriculum was adopted. Not one administrator of curriculum came to any of those meetings. April 19, 2022 board meeting, and the agenda page 20, SHAC updated stated attendance continues to be a concern. SHAC requested a budget to help with attendance and programs to offer students. None was given, and if it came out of the health and nursing monies, not curriculum or general money. So where's the money going for the SHAC meetings that have been held? Update on HB 1525 was brought up about video recordings and meetings must go on the website to be viewed by community. All campuses must develop goals and measure success and be presented at SHAC meetings. SHAC should be present to the board in April annually. Board shall approve community members. This will be on agenda and item in September 2022, and that also never happened. Attached was a list of community members that serve on the SHAC committee, and not one of them was voted for. Since April 19, 2022, the board has done nothing with SHAC and vice versa. Nothing. With the new updates, KSD Board of Trustees and Administration has failed to follow Educational Code, Chapter 28, Section 728, dot 4. Education Code, Chapter 28 states that KSD should meet 4 times a year. That has not been done, and let me tell you why. Meetings should be posted at least 72 hours before the meeting. The notice should be posted at each campus. That has only been done twice legally. Technically, you've had 2 legal meetings, April and May. As soon as practicable, after receiving minutes and video recording under subsection D14, the school district shall post the minutes and video recordings on the district's internet website. There is not one documentation of minutes on the district website as of today. None of the 2 legal meetings have video on the meeting on the district's website. The Board of Trustees shall appoint at least 5 members to the School Health Advisory Council. The majority of its members will be persons who are parents of the students enrolled in the district and who are not employed by the district. One of those members shall serve as the chair and co-chair of the council. Out of all the meetings in 2023, I've been the only parent at these meetings. In 2022, you maybe have 1 or 2 at each one of those meetings as well, none of which were voted by the council or the board for chair or co-chair. In the last meeting I went to, minutes were approved with an item on it that never happened in the prior meeting. The committee lies in front of the only parent in the room. When I called it out, and it's still voted through. I don't need to file a grievance. I'm just here to tell you you're doing a poor job of oversight and letting her get away with it by not having to do it at all. I will be reporting all my information to TA if I do not see the board rescind this vote on the DOI and the SHAC the next board meeting and come up with a plan to fix it. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos. We move now to item number 6, which is communication from administration. Item 6A, superintendent's update. Item number 1, School Health Advisory Council report. Dr. Holt, this can be found in our packets in pages 3 through 37.
Mr. President, board members, Dr. Pettis, I'm here to present the annual report that is required once a year for SHAC. And in bringing this to your attention, the SHAC is required, or the Health Advisory Council is required by Senate Bill 1, and it is required to establish local and health education advisory council. The majority of the members must be parents who are not employed by the school district. That is true. You'll look. You'll look at this. These are the current members that we have, or the account members in the community area that they represent. Now, having said this, there are 32. But we do not have all that come into attendance. In fact, we normally have around 17, even when we held Zoom meetings. Last year, we had 15 to 17 usually in attendance, and most of those are employees of the school district. So we will talk about later what we have done to try to improve getting more participation from the community. But a SHAC committee is a group of individuals that represent segments of the community, whether that be the police officers, or whether that be security, whether that be grandparents, elders, whether that be health community. So there's just a lot of different areas outlined by TEA of what sanctions can, or what areas can be by the community represented. And basically, we invite anybody to come who's interested in the health and welfare of our students in the community, and even our employees. Also, as a requirement, in section 38.014, it is required that we have coordinated school health tied into that. And that means that we have to provide health and supplements recommendations for K through 8th grade. One of the ways that TEA helps with agencies is providing coordinated school health programs. We are trying to follow that of ASCD, which is the Whole Child Network. This has been around for several years. This actually ties in all community efforts They offer programs such as obesity, prevention, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, which is really prevalent in this area. Elementary school, middle school, and junior high students, and we must have, again, a coordinated health education or be looking at recommendations from that. And the 10 components of that program are physical education and physical environment, looking at nutritional services. So we have our director of food services there regularly, health education, and we adopted health education last year, social emotional learning, and climate health services, which we do have Lou Wilson and her nurses participating consistently in those programs and bringing up and doing reporting on whether it's diabetic or immunization clinics, those type of things. Counseling, employment wellness, that's something we're really working on to advance, and that's done through CKH in our community for our students and our staff, and we have addressed that multiple times in the summer as part of curriculum. We continue to try to get the community involved. We've tried to look at different times. We did set a budget this year for food and things to try to encourage members of the community to come. We are probably looking at hosting at different sites next year, so that maybe that's more accessible. We tend to offer that at high school, typically right after school, but we're looking at other times, and last year we asked what days the community wanted to participate in, what hours would be better for them. And the feedback that we received, though limited, were the hours that we actually had convened this year in our 5 different meetings that we hosted.
And I know that you said we were gonna look at Fridays for next year, since our calendar may help lend itself to that. If they're gonna come pick up their children at noon, maybe we can have it during the lunch hour to try to, be good for parents. But
Not only parents, but we'd like to see students in, so that's another reason for there. We'd like to see students participate and start to become involved with the community leaders as well. Maybe we could even do, we've talked about service learning on those Fridays.
Right.
I've asked to kind of lead that, and I'm hoping maybe that will lend our students to be able to work in service learning projects to do with help with community leaders. One of the things that we look at is making sure that our students are trying to get our students into the healthy fitness zone. You're going to have a presentation shortly from Mr. Garcia on how we're doing on the fitness program and his ideas of how to even be more proactive and set higher goals for that. The development and implementation of goals and objectives for physical education. We're now focusing more on elementary, especially with the new curriculum. Part of that new curriculum is digital, so we're really working on trying to get that and have a plan going forward, and that's going forward through CNI. And then also looking at health policies and practices, and we're trying to stay close to some of the new laws, and we'll go over at least 3 of those in just a minute that are out that we were trying to look at. As part of this, there are national health education standards, which are a framework for the curriculum development. And if you'll, on the next several slides, you're going to see 8 different standards. So the first one talks about health promotion and disease prevention. The next one talks about health behaviors and how to set healthy health behaviors. The next one's how to access services. We have a lot of community members and students that need services and are not aware of how to access those. So we focused on that this year. Interpersonal communication skills, decision-making skills, goal setting. Some of these would be within your programs at your campuses, and the goals that are in their campus improvement plans as well. To practice health enhancing behaviors and advocate for themselves and personally and their family and their community health. So those are just a few of the things. So let's look at what a SHAC is required to be. So if you look at the highlighted areas here, a non-school employee parent must serve as a chair and or a co-chair. That is true. Oh, I'm sorry. When I skipped one, so I apologize. I'll go back to that in a second. Must be a chair or a co-chair. However, we did have community members that came in. There were a few, not because, as I said earlier, not all 32 members showed up. And so we set the guidelines. We actually went over what the guidelines were for and what the chair would do and what the co-chair would be. and set an election for the next meeting, and we didn't have any community members that attended in order to have a vote, so we postponed it to yet the third meeting and didn't have any committee members. So at this point, most of the committee, we have committee members there, but we have not had it hosted by a chair or a co-chair that is not an employee. So I've hosted most of those myself. In lieu of that, I'm fully aware that that is supposed to be, I've done SHAC for many years in different districts, and we are trying to get there. So that's why the recruiting efforts have been enhanced. Our website, we've added to our website, and we've changed our wellness website. We've created brochures and a new parent letter that went out. Increased our posting and what the flyers look like for each event, making sure that parents are aware. We had 2 of our meetings focused on community members telling us what they really thought parents were interested in to kind of draw parents in. And a couple of those meetings was very successful based on those recommendations from parents. They are also supposed to meet at least 4 times per year, and this year we met 5 times actually. They must deliver an annual report. There is not a specific due date according to TEA, when I spoke to them last month. But then we were waiting on the fitness grant and wanted to get this in early, so to make sure we weren't out of compliance. There is no deadline. When you do it, you just have to do it annually. Also, they make recommendations on policies, or can make recommendations on policies, procedures, and curriculum. And again, last year they voted on the curriculum that was presented before them and came to some of the meetings prior to that. Also, they can make recommendations on any curriculum that has to do with human sexuality. And in the case of last year, the adoption that we picked had an opt-in module as part of the curriculum, so we did not go out and seek outside human sexuality curriculum. It came within the guidelines and the curriculum we adopted. What SHAC can also do is provide recommendations on health education, and they've even brought some of those up, is what should we be teaching kids in school? Should we bring the health back? So those have been conversations that we've had. Appropriate grade levels and methods of instruction for human sexuality, and also there is a requirement at what grade levels you teach those as well. Making sure that we have full day pre-K, again, the coordinated school health programs, especially in high school and middle school, and it can involve a planning subcommittee to increase physical activity, which we may very well look at as part of the fitness program. Again, that's going to be presented in a few minutes to you. I'm not sure why this is going out of order, but it is, so I apologize. There are also 3 legislative and Senate bills, House bills that have come out that we focused on, especially for our community, because these were areas of community interest on the SHAC Advisory Committee. One was safety and security, because we were doing so much work with safety and security because of the things that we're existing within Texas and the things that were coming up at different schools and our hiring of security. So we actually had the security team come in and talk to us about what they were doing, so that so parents and community would be aware of how we were implementing security in reference to these bills. Also, mental health has been a big discussion on SEL. So we've had our LSSP come in and talk about that, as well as a couple of other organizations. Opioid, Senate Bill 435, opioid addiction and abuse education. And so we actually had fentanyl, and Lou Wilson will talk about that as well, and presented that to the community, because that's an area of drug or substance abuse that's is high right now.
That
Across the United States.
presentation was particularly alarming, listening to all those statistics, so I appreciate you all bringing them in. And I want to make sure that we share that with our kids during one of the Fridays as well, as a station that they can go to, because it's pretty alarming.
I'm not sure why some of these, and so Mr. Garcia, the ears may be a little busy as well, because I'm not seeing a couple of these. I will give you a rundown on what the SHAC meetings are, which I'm not going to see on the screen, so please excuse. The SHAC meetings and agendas in September 21, 22. 21st of 22, we did introduction of bylaws, vision, mission, guided discussion, family, community priorities, SHAC goals, and again, SHAC offices, and what offices needed to be in place, and what the performance would be required for that. November 9th, we did the KISD safety initiative. initiative and also a presentation on human trafficking. We did not, however, make a recommendation on that because that would require several meetings prior for us to make a recommendation to the school district. All we did is look at an informational series from an outside agency that told us about human trafficking, so we would begin to understand that piece. January 23rd of 2023, we had child advocacy and we went over curriculum, 40 developmental assets. That's been around for a while. Some of you that have been in education for a while, and it's really taking the entire community and looking at churches and looking at parent organizations outside, looking at communities and what each one can do to provide wraparound services for a child. So it really goes along with the ASCD whole child piece, but it involves every community member and gives kind of a guideline and where your advocacy could be as a community member. So we talked about that, and some of the parents said, well, you know, my place would be in Boy and Girl Scouts, because that's where I do. My place would be in the churches. My place would be at the hospital if I'm a nurse. So they kind of started to develop where their advocacy piece would be as part of it. March 22 of 23 is when the fentanyl presentation. And at that meeting, we actually had 28 present, so quite an increase in attendance and a lot of positive feedback, as Dr. Fetter said.
It was good to see students there too, some high school students.
May 17th of 23, we did Capturing Kids SARS program. CNI presented health and wellness curriculum. And then we also had a vaping presentation going into the summer, looking at what we've been doing with security throughout the year and noticing a high rise of vaping in the bathrooms. We're trying to inform community as well on what that looks like. So we had an agency come in. Yes, we are looking at DOI. There has not been determined to reduce any meetings. That's not the point. The point is if a meeting, for example, they allow you to have local control, they allow you to customize through DOI. I don't know even what that looks like now. So I couldn't tell you because we haven't had our planning meetings. Flexibility, and yes, it can be exemption from some of the state requirements. So for example, if it is required that a parent be there and there isn't a parent there, can we proceed with a meeting in absence of those parents without it being not within the guidelines? Because you set your own guidelines. I'm not saying we want to do that. I fully would love to have a parent representing you, and you know, instead of myself getting up there and doing it. I think that's where the bulk of change will come from, and the transformation from using a committee like this. Whether it will be 4, whether it will be 5 like we did this year, whether it will be 6, whether it will be 2 major and maybe some minor subcommittees meeting. That is just our flexibility in being able to adjust that. As far as agendas, we follow as the TSHAC, which is the Texas guideline for what SHAC committee should be representing. And so all of the things that we have had on our agendas come straight from that, or representative of those TSHAC topics that they recommend that we should be talking about. So again, one of the big things is making sure that our students are physically healthy. And so one of the guides that we have is the fitness program. So I'm going to ask Mr. Ruben Garcia to come up and talk about this year's fitness program and the numbers that we have.
Good evening. So the fitness program is required by the, state Senate Bill 530. So it's required that we have a fitness program every year and assessing our students. So the fitness program, establishes a baseline of a healthy fitness zone for our students. So when they go through the fitness program, they do the different variety of tests. There's a certain number they get to be in the healthy fitness zone, and that's what they base the fitness program on. Their data is basically just, are they in the healthy fitness zone or are they not? It's just their progress plan for a lifelong physical activity and to maintain and improve their fitness level. It does not place an emphasis on skill or sports related, so it's not anything in regards to, a specific sport or how they are athletically. It's more just along the lines are they in this healthy fitness zone? And the tests are actually pretty basic common tests that they do. Our goal as a district, where the SHAC and district goal is to increase the number of children in the healthy fitness zone as assessed. I think one way we can do that we were talking about is just throughout the year in, I mean, more, when you say the athletic kids, but all of our in the healthy fitness zone, because we do so much, but our, more of our physical education students is throughout the year doing exercises and activities that emphasize the things you are going to test in the healthy fitness zone without them realizing that's what they're doing. You can incorporate it in different activities or games and things of that nature. Things that are tested on, obviously body mass index, they're just testing their, taking their body mass index. A curl up is basically like a sit up, they're on their back and they're basically trying to do a sit up. Flex arm hang, there's a bar, and they pull up like almost like a pull up, and they're just hanging for every time for how long they can hang. The mile run, they just run a mile, they time the mile. Modified pull up, you're actually laying on your back and they have the bar and you're pulling yourself up from your back on the bar. So it's not a real pull up, it's a modified pull up. The pacer test is one I think a lot of people have been through is where they play the tone and you have to make it across before the tone hits, back before the tone hits. And then as time goes on, it speeds up. Obviously push up test, shoulder stretch, the stretching their shoulder down this way. Sit and reach, getting reaching towards your toes. The trunk lift, you're laying on in your stomach and you're just lifting your trunk and they measure how far you can lift it up, test your flexibility. And then the walk test, they're walking. So people tested, 9th grade, 42 girls, 76 boys. 5th grade, at the time that we submitted the data, we did have some complications with the TA when we were submitting it, their website and the way it was reading the data. But we didn't want to hold up having this ready for the presentation, so we entered it as it was. But since then, the numbers, we got more accurate numbers. Like 10th grade girls is more around 35 to 50 girls. And the boys is around 60, and the 11th grade girls is around 35 to 40 girls. So they're on our athletes, our athletic classes, because for whatever reason, when we were submitting it kept coming back like error and things like that. So we didn't want to hold it up, so we entered it here, but since then we have more accurate numbers. And then 12th grade, the reason it's low is, we do it in the spring, and once sports ends, a lot of those kids are not even in athletics or PE or normal classes. So one thing we want to do next year, and we talked about is, now that we got kind of all the kinks with the Teal website and the way they did things, it's having to do with February, doing it earlier. I already said, for next year, I'm gonna have to do it February, get all that done, and then if there is any more kids that need to retest, because we did have some kids that were absent that had to retest to give us a little more time, but just to have it done earlier at a better timeline. We did at the middle school. The middle school had a lot more kids able to test. It wasn't as big of an error, but we had 75 girls in 6th grade, 71 boys in 6th grade. Girls 60, 56, and then 8th grade, girls 22, boys 37. The elementary at Harold, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, you can see the numbers. And then Harvey, we had 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And then Bettis, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. But on our healthy fitness zones, all the HK was 100% of them were in the healthy fitness zone. Even taking into account, obviously, the girls athletics, it was still 100% there in the healthy fitness zone. Same with the boys. Gillette was 100. Harold, Harvey, and Bettis, we had some that were not in the healthy fitness zone. And that's where we came up with the plan, like how do we get them to achieve that? And that's where we have to incorporate those activities, because we know how it is. We go, some of the young kids, when they're shy or when they have to do the test, they're kind of, not wanting to do it, they're, for whatever reason, just, I don't want to say embarrassed, but just shy to do it. So if you start incorporating it in activities throughout the year, and they kind of get used to it, then when it's time to test, they're going to know what they're doing, they're going to feel comfortable, and that will be able to get better results in that regard. And that's it from the this one, not the next one. But that's it for the Instagram. But again, next year we are I'm gonna get it submitted to me in February, and then we kind of ironed out the inputting, because for whatever reason that was a little bit of a hassle just getting accurate numbers. But since then we were able to get it right.
Mr. Garcia, there may be some questions.
Oh. Okay, I've got a couple of questions here. In the lower grades,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, back in the day, there was recess, and there was PE, do we still have PE, organized PE?
Yes, sir, we have organized.
Were these fitness grant, was the testing voluntary?
No, they did it in a certain week span, where they had the fitness grant done and they required the students to participate. I know that there were, some kids that were absent that didn't test, even when they had like a retest day, they didn't test. But the majority of them did, but the PE coaches basically, it's part of their curriculum, so to speak, and so the kids that they're in PE, they participate.
Look, pick a school, any school, Harold, third grade, girls 24. There's probably more than one. I mean, is that the entirety of the third grade class at Harold? Would there just be?
No, I would say there's about 50 kids.
And then be like 51 between the boys and girls adding together, so that could well be.
Yeah, she's a 54.
I'm finding under my head, there's about 54 to 59 at Harold.
Okay, so you only got 10 kids, or so a few that are missing.
Yes, sir.
Let's go back up to the high school, and I understand you've got some data issues, but still. There, like in the ninth grade, we've got 118 ninth graders tested. Aren't the classes generally what size? About 200. 12th, we have less than 5 total. There is a coordinated effort to get all
Correct, yes, sir.
kids. Okay,
Yes, sir. Now, I know that with the ninth grade girls, the number's a little higher because what it was is our girls' athletics data is the one that was. Yeah, messing up. So there's a majority like of our ninth grade girls, our 10th grade girls, our 11th grade girls, our 8th girls athletics. And that's where we had the error, the issue with that. So the numbers are higher. I have the document on my phone where if you can click it, you can see where we reported the numbers. There was to the document, but we only uploaded it to the first time.
but in this particular part of the overall SHAC curriculum. We're trying to establish a baseline for where are we in terms of fitness. And then are we looking for more of a composite, what do we do as a high school or as an individual campus to improve overall? Or is this more of an individualized student by student where somebody sits down with one of the kids to, you know,
Usually it's more overall, as a campus and as a district, you know, and then as obviously the PE teachers, is what we can do overall to improve the numbers. And I also believe whatever we're gonna do to help improve the numbers, we need to make sure we do it at all campuses.
Yeah.
So it's streamlined, it's you know, we're all on the same page. And we're all trying to work toward the same common goal overall. I would say with the high school, it's a little, I would say a little easier, just in the sense that, you know, like we said, I have a lot of kids that are in athletics that, you know, it's easier to get them to do that stuff and improve that stuff, whereas the lower levels, kids are a little more resistant, just because, like I said, they haven't reached that point, but we have been, you know, talking and what we're gonna do to improve that. I said like we would, you know, be incorporated early on in the year and work on these things so that when it comes to testing time in the spring, in January, February, we're able to improve those numbers.
Let's pick any high school grade, 10. Say you have a 10th grader that is not involved at all in athletics. How do they get tested?
In the PE class, it's the same. It's the same test for whether it's athletics or whether it's PE. You have a certain, you know, days you're gonna do the fitness gram. And so let's say it's Tuesday, you're gonna do the PACER test Tuesday. Well, then all the classes are doing the PACER test, whether they're in PE or athletics. During that period, they're doing the PACER test, because that's what they're doing in class that day.
But for those kids who are not in PE or athletics, let's say they're taking band as a PE. We can reach them in band,
Yes, that would be.
and that's part of the concerted effort for next
Yes,
year.
that's why I would
See
be
what they're
looking at
taking
this.
for PE and do it during that time.
Correct.
See, and I think this, I think I applaud the program because we just started this year, right? It's okay.
Yes,
Um,
and he entered, when did you start? in January, so.
And I do think it's very, very good to get a baseline established. Because I think there's a key educational piece that can be used with these students, starting at the earliest grades going forward. Just keep hammering. on,
Yes, sir.
health and fitness, health and fitness, and health and fitness. So I thank you.
Yes, sir. You're welcome. Thank you.
This time I'd like to invite the Wilson District Charge Nurse, RN, to come and speak about some of the things that are connected to SHAC and to the different TEA programs that we use.
So the vision and hearing diabetic risk assessment, which is diabetic risk assessment. And scoliosis is primarily what the state mandates us to do every year. So I'm gonna touch on a few things Mr. Garcia talked about. Diabetic risk assessment is a big deal for our kids. We have to go through when we're doing vision and hearing and look at markers, indicators on their body like dark cheeks, dark necks, obesity, blood pressure. We have children that are in first and third grade on hypertensive medication because of weight. So we have 31.3% of our kids are obese. This is considered if you're 20 pounds or more overweight, you're obese. I'm obese, I'm 20 pounds overweight. Actually, a little more, but it was for 10. So anyway, those are the factors that we look at. Those are your kids in the diabetic risk assessment that get reported to the state that are at risk of developing type 2 diabetes. So if we send a letter to the parent and hopefully the doctor gets back with us. They don't, we send 2 or 3 letters. But on our diabetic children, we have carb counts, which are done through the Butler services. We have to literally go to the cafeteria and see how much of a hamburger a kid ate. And if it's 200, if it's 25 carbs for the whole hamburger and they ate 2 bites, you gotta calculate that according to the insulin, and according to the dosages of what they had. So there's a lot of work in your diabetic risk assessment of all these kids. We do have a high obesity rate, very, very high for our enrollment. I think the key element is early health education in the elementary levels and getting kids running and jumping and all that. And I tried to start a little program a couple of years ago, like before school starts, get the kids to put on some fun music and do jumping jacks for a minute and then do it after lunch because they get sleepy and tired. But curriculum, you know, you've got to have so many minutes for curriculum, but just trying to get them motivated, get them woken up, get them going. The numbers that you see up there, the kids that were screened for vision, hearing, and diabetic risk assessment, after 7th grade, children are not required to be screened by the state for vision and hearing. So what happens is if we have a SPED referral or a 504 referral for them to have an ARD, we have to screen that child and put it in. I have children that have been receiving letters since they were in 5th grade and they're seniors now that they need glasses. I send letters, I put labels on them, I'll help you. I have 10 pairs free through NASN myself. Lions Club is standing by, ready to help at any time. Got lots of opportunities. I can't get the parents to get involved. You know that, sir. So we document at least 3 letters to the parents about vision. And we make phone calls and sometimes there's no help. We try to get all this done before Project Keeps so that we can make the teachers aware of the children that need to be in front to learn. And so that they can also mention it to the parents that the nurse has this letter for you, please. If you need assistance, come see us. But anybody can get assistance. So,
Communities and schools also offer site for students. So making sure that we're communicating with our communities and schools, case managers about some of those kids, and maybe they can help kind of expedite some of this. They can go to their parents' houses and offer that to them too.
Well,
parental involvement is key in everything, and not only educating them physically fit and trying to get our parents into SHAC even.
Yeah.
You know, trying to get them involved, let them know what we have here, what we do.
And I've only got one doctor in town that will do a free physical for a child to play in sports. One. I'm calling right now, he'll say, send that kid over there. But it's hard to get services, it's hard to get services. So the numbers that you see at Gillette, the students that were screened were fifth and seventh, not fifth and seventh. Yeah, seventh graders. At Harold, it's pre-K, kinder, first, third, and fifth, okay? So in all the elementary schools, and at the high school, there's no required screening by the state, so those are your 504 SPED kids that are done that need assistance. Any questions about that? The lot of
I know that a couple of years ago, Harold had a bus out there. Y'all remember that? Harold's had a bus for vision and
Lion
free
Club.
glasses.
And-
And maybe we had a handful of parents while I was
Yeah.
there. It's not like we're not.
We're doing our job.
Yes, exactly.
We document everything in Teams when we send letters home, and we contacted them by phone, because I want somebody to go back there and say, oh my God, they've tried to contact you 11 times or 5 times or whatever.
Right.
So we do everything we can, and so much of it we can get for free. Hearing is a different situation. I can send a child to Harlingen for hearing or in Corpus. That's a little more costly, but there are great opportunities out there. Okay, any questions about this? How to do this thing. So we've already talked about diabetics, and we have more and more type 2 diabetics at school. We're doing blood sugars 4 to 6 times a day on certain students, which is a lot. We provide everything the parent needs. Alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, we did a lot of that through SHAC this year. And we did the fentanyl and the vaping, and vaping was done through Kingsville Police Department. Fentanyl was done by David, who is a DEA agent. He did a tremendous presentation. One of the things that I think Dr. Pettis told you during the State of the District speech was that 3 in 100,000 deaths in Corpus were from fentanyl, and then it tripled to 12 in 100,000 last year. I could not find any stats for Claiborne County. There's no rule of fentanyl deaths in our county, and there has to be something out there, you know, whether it's somebody, but it's easy to get. It's very, very easy to get. So that's a little bit scary. The vaping thing. A lot of kids come to school, they walk on the school grounds vaping, and they're not supposed to be vaping, but you stop them the second they get to the door. There's only so much you can do. Immunization clinics, we're having one tomorrow at the high school for DSHS. They will have the 4th COVID available for adults if you want one to bivalent. It's 10 to 2. And we'll be in the foyer of the high school out there. So, our immunization status needs to improve a lot. We have a lot of 4-year-olds who don't have their 4-year booster. And we have a lot of 7th graders who need their Tdap and their meningitis. We don't want to put other kids at risk because certain kids don't have vaccines. CPR. It's not on there. It's here. So it's on Dr. Pulse. We got 12 new defibrillators this year. We got the G3s are going out. We got the G5s, and so it's going to require everybody to be retrained that travels with kids through UIL. And the G5 has a new pad that goes in the middle where it actually place it and shows you how to do the compressions. I mean, it's like automatic everything. But we got 12, and I have written a grant. I haven't heard back from it. I sent it off May the 11th for $25,000 to replace the money that the school district spent on the other G5s. Haven't heard back. I should hear by June 30th. But anyway, that's $12,000. So we're gonna put the new AEDs where the most volume of students are, which is your schools, But you're very fortunate that you have an AED in this building, one at the bus barn, We have one in ag, 2 in band hall. 7 in the high school at all, you know, to go with the trainers and everything, so we're very fortunate, they haven't just cost a lot of money to keep them up. They're very expensive, but we haven't had to use it, well, we have had to use it one time, where's Dr. Sandoval? Dr. Sandoval and I did CPR in the new high school in April, when we moved in there 9 years ago. 2 days in a row, we did CPR. Hadn't done it since then. So, anybody interested in doing a CPR class, board members, anybody in this room, please sign up. We need a list to put in all of our AEDs to show who signed up and who's there and trained and can use it. And it would help our district a lot. Okay, anything else?
Our meeting, our SHAC possible meeting dates for next year are September, November, January, March, and May, very similar to this year. We're anticipating having a July or August planning meeting. We will get enough community members and staff back to school so that we can actually plan with the DOI and then take that to DOI. Right. Again, we have also revamped our website, revamped our recruiting letter, but don't wait for a letter, because now if you go online and look at our new website, it has a link and you can actually enroll digitally. So if you would like to be as a community member, I know board members that come before as well, but if you'd like as a community member to be involved, please go online and enroll. We love to have you participate and hear your recommendations and comments for the community.
Dr. Holtz, when is that training for the CPR, AED? I mean, Ms. Wilson?
It's in July, I'll send it to Dr. Howell, and she can send it to you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So in July, we'll update. I think.
Thank you.
All right, we move down to item 6B, which is the 2023-2024 revised budget calendar. This can be found on page 38 and 39 of our packet. Dr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Kupal, Dr. Pettis, members of the board. I would like to review the budget calendar. We are on 6/20. Tonight, we have on schedule to approve the employee compensation and stipends plan. Next month, we are going to set a meeting date on the budget and proposed tax rate. Reason why we're waiting till next month to do that is because there's a lot of variability when we're going to get our values from the county, and also when we're going to get our maximum compressed rate from the state as well too. So you see those items with an asterisk, 8.1, 8.10, 8.22, 8.23. All of those may be pushed back a week depending on if we have the data at that point. So by 7/25, we will know where we are, where we stand, and know whether we need to push all those other items back a week. I'll take any questions you have on the budget calendar.
Have you received any numbers from the county, the appraisal district?
I've got some preliminary numbers, but we're supposed to, 7/25 is when we're supposed to receive the numbers, but we haven't always received those on that date.
7/25 or 6/25?
7/25 is when we're supposed to receive them.
Because we were told that the values were supposed to be emailed out last Friday,
Yes, but those aren't the final values.
but you did get some.
I got something, yes.
Thank you. Any questions on regard to the calendar? All right, if not, thank you, Dr. Pitts. We'll move on to item 6C, which is a budget recap report check register for May 2023. This can be found on page 40 to 46 of our packet. Dr. Pitts.
I'm gonna just point your attention to a couple of items. If you look at E3 Alliance Leadership Coaching, that is funded through a grant for two of our schools, currently Gillette and also Harrell Elementary School. Again, all of that funding is coming out of those grants, so it isn't impacting the general fund. If you also look at Southern Computer Warehouse, the majority of that 19,000 and change is for engineering laptops, which all are coming out of the Perkins CTE grant. I'll take any other questions you have on the check register.
All right, if there's no specific questions. Yes, I do have a question. Could you identify that Southern Computing again? How much was it?
Southern Computer Warehouse,
Yes.
about 19,000 and change of that were for the engineering laptops out of the Perkins grant.
But it's 25,000.
25,000 total, the rest of it came out of local funds for other technology equipment, laptops, document cameras and such.
You're welcome. If there's no further questions, we'll move on to item number 7, which is new business. Thank you, Dr. Pitts. Item 7A, by common consent, the board agrees to consider as one action the following. Number 1, approval of the regular meetings minutes of May 16th, 2023. Number 2, approval of special meeting minutes of June 6th, 2023. Number 3, approval of the 2022-2023 budget amendment. Number 1. These were all found on page 47 to 57 of our packet. We're being asked to approve these by common consent. Is there a motion to that effect? Motion made by Mr. Ruiz. Seconded by Ms. Salinas. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 6-0. Item 7B, discussion and possible action regarding the 2023-2024 employee compensation plan. This can be found on page 58 to 82 of our packet. Dr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Coupal. I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint that we had 2 weeks ago. And just point your attention to a couple of things on it. Okay, so if we look at this slide, we did take CCISD out of the data. And on this slide, we talked a little bit about central administration last time, and you have a list of which employees that includes basically administrators, solely administrators that impact the entire district. The other one that you see there, instructional support, is at 110%. Those positions are hard to fill positions. They are aides, our instructional aides, our special education aides, our LVNs, and again, those are positions that are really hard to fill, and we have many vacancies there right now at this time. So you can see that across the board, though, we are very competitive at market value with other districts. Again, that first column has to do with years of experience, so it's not apples to apples. The apples to apples column is the second column where it compares midpoints to midpoints of the other districts. So, and then if I go to the final slide, if you look at this slide here, this is what we are recommending for every one of those groups, except for the district administrators. We're recommending a 2% increase. Want to make a point that it will be a little more than the 639,000 because when this is done at a snapshot, there are some employees that are leaving and some that are coming. There is a gap, but also if we approved only a 1% for the district administrators, that would save us about $29,000 as well there too. So with that said, again, we went over this in detail. What we're recommending is 2% for all pay grades except for the district administrators, and then also the step for teachers as well. Again, right now, there is a lot of uncertainty with the Texas legislation. They haven't really passed a funding bill to increase funding. And of course, we went over where we are with the budget last time with the ESSER cliff. We are not able to afford the 4% we had last year or the 3% raise we had before. So that's why the administration is recommending those choices.
Did you mention about the step up for teachers and librarians as well?
Yes, step up for teachers and librarians. Yes, thank you. Besides the 2%, and we've always offered a step for those pay grades. I'll take any other questions you might have.
So with the step up and the 2% increase, the total is on average, it will cost the district $639,493. Is that correct?
Close to that. It'll balance out a little bit because there's a little bit more that's not included because there were some employees that weren't captured in TASB's study, but also it would be a little bit less because of the 1% for district administrators. So it would be close to balancing each other out. So yes, you're correct.
Why, Dr. Pitts, why are we excluding the district administration or the administrator?
So let's go back to that one slide. Right now, you look at central office administrators, we are paid at 108% of market value, and historically, market value increases 2% every year. So if you don't increase at least 2%, you're going to fall behind the market. However, during the COVID years, there were bigger increases. Almost all districts did that, and we had to increase more to remain competitive with the other districts. Now, as you see, we are very competitive with the other districts as well. And let's go back. So these are all the groups except for teachers. Let's go back to the teachers. So you see where we are right now at 0 years of experience, we're at 101%, 5 years, we're at 100, and you see where we are at the other years. I want to point out that TASB has built in, you see those years where we're a little bit under, TASB has built in an adjustment for those other years besides the 2% and pay grade because they want us to be competitive at those two. So if you look at the slide going down here, let's go to model 3. If you look at, there's a general NP increase, that's 2%. And then they build in adjustments. So any individual position that is falling more than 10% behind its peers, they give an additional adjustment so that they can get closer to market value for those. So even though you're approving also the 2%/1%/step, you also are approving that TASB is recommending that there's some that are falling behind to give that additional adjustment so that we don't get too far behind market value for each position.
And I know at the workshop, there were questions about looking at a staggered model. So that's pretty much why we brought a staggered model.
So in our book, it's either page 78 or 79. It says 78, but my computer says 79. We've got the cost of model 1. There we go. So we're going to be taking that line item dealing with administrative professionals.
Not exactly administrative professionals, because that includes more than district professionals. In other words, that includes also campus professionals too. So we are actually looking at this one that's broken down further it separates central administration versus campus administration.
So in your best estimate, what is that number if it's not 630?
If it's not 630, it's pretty close, even the final number, it's pretty close to that because we're saving about $29,000 in salaries for district administrators, but there were some that were not captured in the TASB study, some positions that weren't. But if you factor all of that in, it's going to be a little bit more than 639,000 with the positions that weren't included in the initial TASB study. No, that doesn't include benefits. That is only salaries.
So you're
So-
saying,
so-
I'm sorry if I might,
No, but
if even with a 2%, so if it was a 2% increase across the board, you're only saving $29,000 by going for a 1% increase for administration.
yes, for district administrators, yes, sir, that's correct. And answer your question, Ms. Salinas, you're right, that doesn't include benefits. For instance, we pay a TRS on that. We also, health insurance, again, that's something that's determined by the district. We don't have to give a certain percentage, and we'll bring health insurance later, but everything else, there are benefits which could run another 8% of that as well. When you increase salaries, you also increase benefits as well too.
We'd be happy with that. Yeah, we'd be happy with that. but-
I think though, as we discussed in the, I think we discussed in the workshop. If we have administrative salaries at 108% of the market. And we don't have teachers and other salaries at 108% of the market. And we continue to pay everybody the same. Then that disparity kind of stays there. And I just, I think everybody here is worth every penny they earn, and 2%, I wish it could be 5 or more. There was a lot of talk this legislative session about mandatory pay increases. The state was going to give us money, and they haven't, and they still may. They may come back with some, and so there may be some good news down the road, not according to Brett. And I just like to, I mean, I do see the point that it's not an awful lot savings, 29, but I would like to see us do as much as we possibly can for especially our lower level earners. When we're talking about percentages, there's a big difference in what that percentage means depending upon where you are on that scale.
Well, I think it's also our advisor from the TEA came in and said that her suggestion is that we give what we can afford to give now. And if the state comes back and says, here's a big amount of money, we can always increase our percentages. But right now we have to be careful, because as soon as they don't come in with the money, we're stuck with the back.
All right, any further questions or discussion? If not, you've heard the presentation and the recommendation that Model 3 be adopted for, with the exception of central administration being reduced from a 2% increase to a 1% increase. Have I
Yes, sir.
framed that correctly? That's the recommendation. Is there a motion to be made?
So moved. I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Glusing, seconded by Mr. Chapa. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 6-0. Item 7C, discussion and possible, thank you, Dr. Pitts, special discussion and possible action regarding the 2023-2024 academic and athletic stipends. This can be found on page 83 to 85 of our packet. Dr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Kufal. So stipends are what is used to compensate all our employees for sponsoring different sports and activities such as National Honor Society, Student Council, and so on. So this is something that teachers get when they choose to go above and beyond and do extra activities. And we all know that those extracurricular activities are what encourages a lot of students academically as well. And we went over these in detail at the workshop. Just for your information on the academic side, all those stipends expected total comes out to $500,500. On the athletic side, it comes out to approximately $347,750. For a total of $848,300. Again, this is very close to what we have been the last several years. We went over the few changes from before. I'll take any questions that you might have.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we discussed this extensively at our workshop meeting. You see the listing there and the recommendation that the listing be adopted for 2023 and 2024, the academic and athletic stipends. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Ruiz. Seconded by Ms. Salinas. Any further discussion on the stipends? If not, all those in favor say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 6-0. Item 7D, discussion and possible action regarding contract award for external audit services. This can be found on page 86 to 94 of our packet. Dr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Kufal. Just a quick short summary of the audit process. Our fiscal year always ends August 31. So the audit year is from September 1 to August 31 every year. There are some things that we can prepare ahead of time, but a lot of times in September, we are paying for things that were done in August, but we're invoiced for in September. So really, a lot of our books, it's hard to close until October. So October, November, and December, we are working with the auditor, providing the documents, and then he comes and presents in January of every year. We've had Raul Hernandez and company for the last 4 years. We've been very pleased with the services. We are recommending a 3-year engagement letter for fiscal years 23, 24, and 25. I'll take any questions that you have.
That's a fixed fee for those 3 years.
Yes, that's a fixed fee for those 3 years. Yes, so that's the advantage of a 3-year contract is that it doesn't go up. Obviously, it goes up a little bit. I believe it was 26,000 and change the last 2-year contract. This will be fixed for 3 years.
All right, you've heard the presentation and the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve this contract? Motion made by Mr. Garza. Garcia. Mr. Garza.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Chapman. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Any opposed? Sure, all right, we move down to item 7E, discussion and possible action regarding the 2022-2023 low attendance days waiver. This can be found on page 95 to 96 of our packet. Dr. Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Kufal. As you're aware, we are paid based on the average daily attendance of our students. So whenever there is a problem that is because of weather or health or safety, we can exclude those days of low attendance from the calculation, which basically gives us a higher average, which translates to more money for the district. These waivers do need to be approved by the board. You see the dates there and you see the reasons there. I'll take any questions you might have.
I had a question for the May incident at Bettis with HVAC. How come that's not listed?
That one was not even included as an attendance day for Pettis, so it can't be, it already was excluded because it wasn't included in the as an actual attendance day. The others, there were enough there that there was a good attendance there, but unfortunately, it was, if it's more than 10% below the average from the previous year, you can exclude it. And it was more than 10% below. Now with Pettis, just kind of like last year when there were some days that some campuses had COVID last year, those days were completely taken out of the formula. And as long as you have 75,600 minutes within the year, you're able to exclude the day completely. So we still included these 2 days in the formula to get to the 75,600 minutes. We just want to exclude the negative results for the attendance on those days. But again, for Pettis, that 1 day is completely excluded, even from the 75,600 minute calculation. But we still have enough minutes that it doesn't matter that that day is completely taken out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, you've heard the presentation and heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve the low attendance day waivers?
So
Motion made by Mr. Garcia. Seconded by Ms. Salinas. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 6-0. Item number 7 now regarding purchases over $50,000. So we found on page 97 to 98 of our packet. Dr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Kupal. This is for National Glazing Solutions, approximately $67,000 expenditure paid out of the school safety standard formula grant. What this is it's actually a requirement from the school safety standards where each of the glass doors and all the adjacent windows to the glass doors has a film on the inside. That film does not stop bullets, but what it does is it kind of collects all the glass together so that it doesn't shatter right away. So what this does is it buys time. It's going to take 2 to 3 minutes for them to knock off all of the glass. So this would be district-wide, about $67,000 to do that to all our glass doors and adjacent windows. I'll take any questions you might have.
Is this for the film or for the installation or both?
This is for both.
And when is that scheduled to be done?
That's not scheduled to be done yet unless the board approves it.
Is that every window or just certain windows?
No, it's glass door windows, and then if there's a window adjacent to that. But not every window in the district. These are ones that by the school safety standards have been most identified for an intruder to come into the building.
All right, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Chapman.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Galusing. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 6-0. Item number 8, the board will now enter into closed session. Thank you, Doctor. Enter in closed session in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551.071 and 551.074 to deliberate and consider the following. 8A, consider and deliberate regarding resignation of contracted employees. Item 8B, discussion with legal counsel regarding legal and personal matters. No action will be taken until we return to open session. We are entering closed session at 6:45 p.m.
Yeah, but I got something.
We now return to open session and take necessary action on matters which the board may discuss in open session and upon which action may be taken. We are returning to open session at 7:12 p.m. Item 7, a discussion of possible action regarding the resignation of contracted employees.
Administration recommends the Board of Trustees approve the resignation of Assistant Principal from Asian King High School as presented in closed session.
All right, you've heard the recommendation of the superintendent. Is there a motion to accept the resignation?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Glusing. Seconded by Mrs. Salinas. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 6-0. There being no further business to come before this board, I'm declaring this meeting adjourned at 7:12 p.m.